Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of The Probe. Tonight, Ghana's Information Minister designate joins me to tackle a few nagging issues, including her parliamentary approval being in limbo. Is the press truly free in Ghana? What are the gains made so far? And how can we improve it? Can the media find a friend in the new team taking over the helm of affairs at the Ministry of Information? We'll also take a look at the gains made and whether it may have been made in the press freedom ranking because of the reflection of the general decline globally. Is that what it is? We'll take a look at it tonight. Amongst other issues, what we'll be tackling. What about our corruption ranking? Appiatse rebuilding and handing over of 124 housing units has been done. We shall dig deeper into it. And as we prepare to air the second part of Joy News Hotline documentary After the Floods, we ask what happens to residents affected by the Akosombo Dam spillage as well. These are questions and more that we'll be tackling. What has also happened to the funds allocated for the purpose of resettlement, etc. These are some of the issues that we'll be taking a look at. But first, we shall get talking. But first, let's take a look at the press freedom performance as we mark Press Freedom Day. I'm sure you've heard by now, we are 50th out of 180 countries so far. What may have accounted for the situation? We take a look at it. This is our position as we speak. We started off from 2014, it was 27th. 2015, we came to 22nd. 2016, 26th, we maintained the spot in 2017. And then 2018, we came to 23rd. 2019, back to 27th. On the in 2020 ranking, we are 30th. Then 2021, 30th again. What happened between that period? Up until 2022, we came to 60th. 2023, we came to 62nd. Then 2024, here we are today, 50th. I would want you to take note of this. Between 2014 and 2021, well, Ghana was among top 30 globally. But as we speak, even though we may have improved and people are talking about the gains made, we've improved by just 12 places, but we are still not in the top 30 globally. That's where it stands, at least. Between 2022 and 2024, we're out of the top 30 global, countries in good standing. So Ghana was among it. Now we are not. We go on to some other ones, and then the World Press Freedom Index, we know that we are 67.71%. That's where we stand. Even though we are 50th, it's 67.71%. Now we go on, and you take a look at this. We've been talking about the top 30 and where we were from 2014 to 2024. If you take a look at this graph or the map as we have it, from 2014, 83.71%, that was the ranking. Then all the way, we were satisfactory in 2018. But now, as we speak, even though we may have improved, our situation is a bit problematic. Should I say very problematic, if there's anything like that. So that's where we are. Between 2019 and 2024, we're in the problematic range, which is not too good for us. What can we do to remedy the situation? Going on, that has been the trend. But let's take a look at the factors and the indicators. 2023 score and 2024 score. Let's just look at these two. Now, political, you can see the red status, which has worsened, even though we've improved. These are the indicators. Political, economic, legislative, social, and security. You take a look at this and you realize that politically, we are still in the red. That's our status. The situation has worsened. Where you see red, it means it's worsened. Where you see green, there's an improvement. But that's what it stands. Security, even though it accounts, you see in the coming slides that security accounted for our spots in terms of our drop and all. Yeah, we'll go back to this particular slide again, then we can go forward. So look at it. Politically, this is where we stand. Economic, 47.92%. Legislative, 74.41%. Social, 73.41%. Then security. That's a good status. It's 82.94. So politically, economically, legislative, and socially, we are not doing too well. The situation has worsened, but security-wise, it's improved. These are the indicators when it comes to the contributors and the indices when it comes to our ranking. Let's go to the next slide. And for this one, the numbers recorded in Ghana, I was telling you about the security situation. So physical attack, in all, we've had the numbers recorded in Ghana up to 30 cases. Physical attack, 9. Arrest and detention, we have 9. And then seizure, destruction of property, we have 6 cases. Threats, we have 3, at least those reported. Then censorship, we have 1. Shutdown, 1. And then sentencing, we have 1. And that's the situation that we have. Then when we go on to the next slide, we have organized group, we have 3 individuals, we have 1 party affiliates, 3, the courts, and then the state public officials. These are the types of perpetrators, the situations that we've had. Then the security agents, 20. I was telling you earlier about the security contribution to the number of attacks we've had on persons in the media. It was security agents, 20 of them. These were the types of perpetrators. This is what we've seen. Organized group, we have just 3. State or public officials, 1. The courts, we have 2. And then party affiliates, 3. And then individuals, 1. And then wrapping up on this, this is where we start in terms of the type of perpetrators. So these are the key indicators, the things that have happened, what has contributed to our ranking. We may be 50th, an improvement, but really, is it a true reflection on the ground? These and more are the issues we'll be talking about right here on The Probe tonight as the Information Minister Designate Fatimatu Abubakar joins us here on The Probe. Thank you very much for your time here tonight. I think this is about our first interaction on The Probe.
Yes.
Right? Oh, yes. It's good to see you. You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're ready for this, and we'll get into it shortly. We are live on the Joy News channel. We're on Joy 99.7 FM. We're on myjoyonline.com, DSTV channel. We're on 421, GoTV 125, a number of affiliates across the country. We are also on all social media platforms. We're on Facebook, TikTok, wherever you find yourself, we are there. Do stay with me. I am Emefa Apau, and this is The Probe. We'll get talking shortly. Please do stay. You're welcome back to tonight's edition of The Probe. Our Information Minister Designate Fatimatu Abubakar is my guest. We are live on the Joy News channel. We're on Joy 99.7 FM, affiliates across the country. We are on social media platforms. We are on YouTube. We're on myjoyonline.com. I must say that a million apologies today for the difficulties you had accessing My Joy Online. We had been going through some maintenance work, and we're up and running now and all fixed just for a better experience on myjoyonline.com. Welcome once again.
Thank you, and good evening to you and also to your cherished viewers.
Well, it's been a week where you've been, I'm sure, talking a lot about press freedom. I've been following a lot and see that you've been talking a bit about press freedom and our ranking amongst others. Really, yeah, we may have improved, 50th, but really, is that a true reflection on the ground, you'd say?
Okay, once again, let me paraphrase what Reporters Without Borders, who are responsible for the Global Press Freedom Ranking, have said. They said you cannot compare rankings that are not based on the same methodology. Mm-hmm. You would realize that before 2022, the focus of the Press Freedom Ranking was really about the interactions of governments with the press, okay, and how government activities were creating conducive environment for the media to operate in any particular jurisdiction. Since 2022, Reporters Without Borders has expanded and changed the format of assessment to include the activities of all stakeholders within the media landscape. That is why from 2022, once again, they look at the social indicator, as you mentioned, the security indicator, the political indicator, the legislative indicator, and also the safety of journalists. Yeah. That being said, you realize that when you talk about economic conditions mm-hmm. of journalists, really, in our dispensation or under the current regime, the regime we've been practicing from the 1992 Constitution, the issue about censorship has been removed. The unfettered rights of journalists or right to free press has been guaranteed under the Constitution. And you realize that majority of media houses in Ghana are not owned by government, mm-hmm. over 90%. So their salaries, conditions of services, and other issues related to their welfare are not determined by government, but individual media houses and media owners determining that. Yeah. So you realize that although for a very vibrant, well-established media house like Multimedia, the salaries and conditions of service that they will be able to mobilize for their workers will not be the same as maybe another media house that may not be as well established. But let me hasten to add that all the indicators that I have mentioned carry the same weight, meaning it doesn't matter. For instance, this year, 2024, if you are doing well with safety of journalists and you are at 82.94%, as stated in the report, it carries the same weight as the economic indicator. So when you get 47% on the economic indicator, it's going to drag you down.
Yeah.
So as a ministry and key stakeholders within the information or media sector, as we seek to resolve the challenges for our journalists and in the space, we have to look at everything. If we sit and the conversation is only about safety, we will achieve the safety. Yeah. But it is not sufficient to raise us up to where we want to be. And one critical issue that came up frequently has to do with the political indicator.
Yeah.
Many a times the assumption is that when we talk about political indicator, it is government or the party in power. Government is part, the party in power is part, but it is not only government and the party in power. If any political party, for instance, if a reporter attends a political rally, it doesn't matter whether it's NDC, NPP, C, Afrafran, it doesn't matter, whichever political party may be, and the person is attacked or threatened. If it is reported, it also adds cumulatively to the outcomes that we will get for our political indicator. So in terms of social education, in terms of sensitization, we need to let that flow so that people don't think that, okay, if it has to do with political rallies that are not related to government, I can misbehave and it does not have any implications for the state. If you look at the social indicator as well, for instance, I think somewhere last year there was an incident at Adan. It can be members of the society. They look at, generally, really, they look at how susceptible, how the community received the journalists or reporters, how we allow them to practice freely as a society without the political and other interferences. Are Ghanaians okay with the media? How do they receive the media? Do they allow them to go about their activities freely? So if collectively we are able to build on what we have achieved in terms of each of the sectors or each of the measuring indicators, then you can be rest assured that we are in the right direction.
Are you with those who would say that the media we have in Ghana is a reflection of the society? Are you with those?
Of course. I believe we raise the journalists, their fabric, their DNA, their socialization, everything reflects what the Ghanaian society is. So I don't think there is any contention when it comes to that.
Okay.
One other point that I would like to emphasize is that all these issues keep recurring. There are so many issues that have happened over the period. And as a ministry, what we have done, if you follow the activities of the ministry, to tailor our interventions and the government communications or our policy drive towards resolving these issues. So if you pick an indicator, for instance, like the legislative indicator, you will see that over the last few years, what we have used to improve upon that is the passage of the RTI Act and the successful implementation of the RTI Act and our subsequent efforts towards the LI and such amendments that will complement the implementation as we have it today. If you look at the security indicator, which has to do with safety of journalists, our attempt at resolving that is the introduction of the coordinated mechanism on the safety of journalists in collaboration with the National Media Commission, so that if, for instance, a journalist is threatened or attacked, and the person does not have the confidence or clout to pursue a legal action, they can, rise on our wings and our collective support to build that confidence.
But on that, there are existing cases unresolved. Right here under our nose is the issue about Latif. We know it's in court, amongst others. There's been a back and forth. It's been on for some time now. My colleague Eraso Sasari-Donko was also verbally attacked. There was a threat openly by a member of parliament, leading somebody who even rose to contesting as presidential candidates in your party, for instance. These are cases that are still outstanding. Really, if we are committed to dealing with it, these are examples. Ahmed Swale, we are still yet to find the killers, amongst others.
There is a general dispensation when it comes to the judicial process. And the delays are concerning, really. And it has nothing to do with just issues pertaining with journalist safety or anything of that. It can be land litigation. It can be prosecuting corruption. It can be on any other issue. And you realize that we go with the adage that the wheels of justice may turn slowly but grinds fine. Generally, that has, even for those of us who have been through legal education in Ghana, even in the classrooms, these are issues that are concerning. Of course, the fast-track High Court was introduced so that some particular issues will be treated with dispatch, including human rights disputes or issues. But that does not stop the court for making sure there is rule of law, and even when someone is accused, they have the right to fair hearing and due process, including notices and all that are pursued. So you realize that generally, and our legal systems are saying that some of the cases can really be in court for so long. That does not mean that they are not being pursued. On our part, from the executive, because the judiciary is certainly independent, is to push for an investigation, to push for prosecution, and convince all stakeholders that, okay, we are with you, we are not standing in the way of prosecution. There are instances where even government or the Ministry of Information has taken it upon ourselves to reach out to the police CID that we are bringing this issue of attack before you, so that the journalists will be confident.
And does it get that attention?
Of course, of course. And also, some have also raised issues about the sentencing or the fines or the weight of the punishments. And the weight and all that, the determination goes beyond what we at the ministry will do. So although we advocate for stiffer punishment, it only takes other things beyond our work to pursue that. You would also realize that within the year in review, under the leadership of Honorable Kojo Nkrumah, the ministry had a stakeholder engagement with the police service and other security agencies to look at how they resolve issues involving journalists, or how they treat cases that border on safety. Similar engagements were held with the judiciary, so that we will add to the advocacy that when matters pertaining to safety of journalists come up, they should treat it with dispatch. So I'm saying that these performances are good, these indicators are improving, but the baseline is not any other year but 2022, because Reporters Without Borders have told us so.
Yeah, but if you look at that baseline, at least I put that out when we're doing it, talk about these indicators, the security, legislative, political, is only one indicator that at least we've done well, which is the security. The rest have not been good. But I've heard you talk about that improvement and all that over the week, but really there's a general decline worldwide when it comes to press freedom. So maybe that's what is just pushing us to where we are. Indeed, it could have been worse, but for the global or the general global decline. Ghana, we are part of the global village. We don't live in isolation. And especially in the face of digitalization and social media, our cultures are a bit intertwined because people are seeing what's happening elsewhere. And there is a tendency to even say, let me replicate it here. So even in the face of all that, if we are able to
maintain a certain standard or situation peculiar to Ghana, I think we all deserve commendation for that. Because we could have easily also slipped into what is happening elsewhere. My heart is filled with joy, especially on the morning of 2nd May. When I looked at the report, what I was looking for within the period was any journalist attacked or died, what's happened, is anybody in prison, is any, you look at the situation reports, and when the reports are coming, we are all on edge because the contributors are not us. There are CSOs, there are other people whose work, whose research contribute to some of these outcomes. And not all of them do we have the benefit to see before it gets to RSF or even before the report comes out. So we were concerned looking at the performance generally. But once again, if you look at even the raw scores, percentages, that in 2023, our overall score was 61.88, and in 2024, our overall score is 67.71. So you will say that maybe we've not gotten to the A's, but I'm excited that we haven't declined, because if there was a decline, I believe this conversation would, even by a point, I mean, if it was from 62 to 63.
But considering that we've been to 22 with 22nd before, and then we are now at 50, we shouldn't be rejoicing too much.
I am saying that when we got to 24, economic conditions was not there.
Okay.
We were performing better than South Africa because economic conditions were not there. Now South Africa is doing better than us. Do you know why? Because if you look at the salaries and conditions of service of journalists in South Africa and compare them to that of Ghana, go and check their scores. You would realize that if certain indicators were also introduced under the previous dispensation, then definitely we wouldn't have been where we are.
Okay.
But if we want to compare apples to apples, then look at the cumulative efforts of governments and the scores under the dispensation before 2022. Then we can also confidently say that the only time that Ghana was #1 in Africa was when President Akosombo was president in 2018. So you realize that the only time we were first in Africa, that was in 2018. And even before then and after, there has been second, third, down there somehow. But the moment the assessment changed and then they introduced other factors, and I'm saying that if we had pulled just a little bit to get the economic indicator from 47 to the 59, it is the most significant
because it's one key thing that is hampering the work of the media. You talked about the fact that it is indeed private, but is there anything really that your outfit, at least under your leadership, you're going to take a look at to ensure that even the private sector, are able to pay workers better, at least? Because media, it's been said that are the poorest paid in this country.
Absolutely.
When you look at the professions.
Absolutely. So somewhere last year, the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, through the Minister for Information, lobbied to get the Africa office of the International Fund of Public Interest Media, IFPIM, to be set up in Ghana, just as we have AFTA in Ghana. And government believes if they are in Ghana in terms of proximity and access, even the staffing and a lot of other benefits are going to reach Ghanaian media by the sheer knowledge that they are here, they are accessible, there is proximity and all that. Over the past few months, all our efforts are towards fulfilling government's obligation of setting up a decent office for them as part of our host nations agreements and facilitating the full implementation of IFPIM in Africa so that our media houses can benefit, because they are in the position to even give bursary support for struggling media houses to be able to pay salaries and generally address the issue of sustainability when it comes to media practice, because they love how plural and how vibrant and colorful that our media landscape is, and they don't want it to get extinct. So that is one of the many ways. On the part of government, of course, we can work towards improving the conditions of state-owned media and over the period we are committed to that.
Well, one key law, or this act at least, has been a bit topical, Section 208 of the Criminal and Offences Act. The bit about a person publishing or reproducing a statement, rumor, or report which is likely to cause fear and alarm to the public. There are those who are calling for a repeal of that. You are for it?
A lot of people have called for the repeal. Originally, I was like, oh, if it's something that we can get it out, I don't mind. But I have also heard journalists, some of your colleagues, say that even if you look at the Reporters Without Borders report, one of the issues that have come out up strongly has to do with media ownership in Ghana and the penetration of political actors in media ownership, such that the lines between journalism and PR practice have been blurred. Because you expect that the editors, the journalists, the reporters are independent of whatever manipulations within the political space. But if, for instance, someone is established by a political party or political house, then of course the editors will struggle to take certain decisions or actions that contradict the position of that party or that affects the owner of the business. So some of these issues have made it difficult to maintain certain standards, which they acknowledge are deteriorating, issues about reporting facts and issues about balance and fair practice. So you realize that although some are advocating that let us remove that provision from the Criminal Offences Act, but others are saying under the current dispensation, even with that, people are not afraid to peddle falsehood and engage in misinformation and disinformation. And if you say that we should remove the provision and leave the duty, the burden on the courts, that let them say whatever they want and you will get your redress in court. So pursue all the defamation actions, and then there is nothing holding anybody responsible, that you ought to, you yourself, verify what you have before you put it out. Because sometimes too, you see that a very reputable station will pick someone's comment on Twitter or Facebook, just cut and paste, and then put it in a story and add a headline to it. The danger is that because of the goodwill of the brand, the credibility and reputation, maybe I wouldn't care about that individual making noise as a social commentator, but because this media house or that media house has reposted it on their online platform, there is no turning back from there. So people are also concerned that even in the face of this provision, look at what some practitioners are doing.
The issue about responsibility being preached as well.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we are 50th when it comes to press freedom, but the issue about corruption comes in, at least another ranking, 70. Really, how are we hoping to replicate same, at least, to change our figures when it comes to corruption? There's been talk about the fact that we are really not fighting this menace. It doesn't look like we are able to fight corruption. It looks like it's that rather fighting us. I'm sure you're concerned about that.
You know, the issue is that when you look at the rankings, it has to do with corruption perception.
Exactly.
Perception, and not actual corruption. So anytime
perceptions don't reflect what's on the ground, right?
How perceptions are created, I know you are in the practice, and you see sometimes how perceptions are engineered. If the public opinion is that we are declining in terms of corruption, of course we are concerned and ought to look at it. But then, when you ask that, let's go into specifics, case by case. Let's look at, under this regime, how issues have been treated. Then we are moving from perception to actual incidents and how they have been handled. And under this regime, there hasn't been an instance that allegations have been made that they haven't been referred to any of the anti-corruption institutions or the police CID.
It may have been referred, but it is how it ends up. Whether we actually get to the bottom of it, whether we get a proper resolution to some of the issues is the concern.
There is also the perception, especially on recent developments concerning interactions between the OSP and Iyoko and also
And
the
the
AG's office. And
you're
when
talking about the Cecilia Dapa case.
And when I followed conversations, this is the perception I also got. It appears some people have made their minds up that when an allegation is made against a politician, the only outcome is a guilty verdict and nothing else. Therefore, if there are investigations and they are to the effect that there is no guilty verdict, they say it was inconclusive. Conclusiveness can also mean that the person is not guilty or no corruption was found because the basis of our Ghanaian democratic dispensation is the rule of law and everybody deserves a right to fair hearing. So it shouldn't be sufficient that today MFA will say Fatih is corrupt and it's okay, and then we have to use every arsenal to find something about
So it's
corruption.
not like we just mentioned or somebody just got up and said Cecilia Dapa is corrupt or anything for that matter. At least we saw some cash unexplained. We've gone through the process, but it looks like today, from the communication we are seeing between Iyoko, the AG, and the OSP, it appears that case is
Interestingly,
effectively over.
Interestingly, do you know that until Madame Cecilia Dapa sent a complaint against her domestic staff, she was not under any criminal investigation. In fact, she was not under any lifestyle audit. In fact, she did not even have a reputation over the period that she has been in politics to be involved in any corruption activities. In fact, in that case, she was a complainant, not an accused. It is only because, as a law-abiding citizen, she had an issue, a domestic issue, and felt that, let me take the matter to the police service and make sure it goes through legal process. And then she made full disclosures to the court, voluntarily. The disclosures were made by herself and her husband. There was no instance or incidents concerning maybe during her period at the Ministry of Sanitation, there was an investigation into contracts she has awarded, and maybe there is
the concern is the unexplained cash, the amounts of money involved.
I'm saying there can be another conversation about people keeping money in the house. There can be another conversation about that. But the issue about unexplained is something that is contentious here. Because you saw the final report of the Office of Special Prosecutor. They took 7 months to investigate. They did interviews. They subpoenaed. They made people bring documents. They investigated. And they did not find corruption or any incidents of corruption. That was the outcome. It means she was able to explain the money. If there were other aspects that they think remittances or transfers between Ghana and other jurisdictions suggested to them that maybe a further investigation of money laundering should be done, that is another issue. But we cannot shift the goalposts from the fact that this whole investigation and noise and she being on the front pages was the fact that we were alleging or impugning some corruption or corruption-related activity on the woman. And the outcome of a 7-month-long grilling investigation, including taking documents of her ministry and auditing and finding out, checking her account balance to see whether there are even relationships between her work and some payments and all that. It came out that they could not find evidence relating to corruption. So we cannot sweep that under the carpet and all of a sudden say that, okay, we should move the conversation because we didn't find corruption, but we must find something against it. That is why I'm saying that the moment we subject ourselves to the legal process and say that we should go through it, we should not presume that the only outcome the nation must get is that a guilty verdict is produced.
Is that case effectively over from where you sit?
From where I sit, what I've seen is Iyoko doing a preliminary assessment and also writing
some documents we've heard from the OSP as
yes,
well.
Yes. So it depends on the security agencies and also those with prosecutorial powers. I cannot sit here as an appointee and just presume that they are done. They shouldn't. No, I will not go into that. Okay. But the fact remains that OSP's report is to the effect that they did not find evidence of corruption. And that is conclusive for me.
Okay.
When it comes to her being involved in corruption, it's been investigated, it's been concluded, it's been established that there was no evidence of corruption.
And your government is satisfied with your fight against corruption over the period?
I am satisfied because, see, it is President Akufo-Addo who brought about Office of Special Prosecutor. Everything, fact-finding, cases they've pursued, whether against government or anything, is in their capacity based on the provisions of the OSP Act. They have acted autonomously. I don't think anything beyond bursary support from government machinery.
You've heard the complaints from the OSP himself, the impediments that has been put in his way in terms of executing the powers that he's been given, even though it was set up under President Akufo-Addo.
I am saying that, Sister MFA, when you go to court today, you can have adverse witnesses. You can have a case and then you want someone to come and help you with their investigation, but they are not willing. It's a different conversation. It's because in Ghana we are under an adversarial system. When you want to investigate, it is upon you and your staff to build the capacity and try and get your material and your facts and your evidence. It is not under anybody's, I don't know how to put it, but I'm saying that the moment government brought the legislation into effect, the moment government provides the bursary support, the remaining work as to putting documents together and everything to prosecute, it's right at the doorstep of the OSP and not the president. So it is not fair unless there are specific instances that they said this case the president said or did not prosecute. But I'm saying when you go to the actual cases and you look at the documents and the reports that have come, it's not a reflection of the perception that has been created about the government. But we are in a dispensation of free speech. So, of course, I cannot sit on anybody's perception. But we work continuously to see how best we can improve our performance when it comes to actual corruption. And let me tell you the amazing thing that this government has done, digitalization. It has removed a lot of bottlenecks and a lot of issues of bribery in the system than people will even realize. I don't go to ECG office to queue so that someone will say, give me something before I let you jump the line. I buy my ECG credits on my phone with my ECG app. I have 5 meters loaded on it. Even my mother's meters, everybody's meters, I'll load and just recharge with my Momo. It has removed corruption. My water, I do everything on my phone. NHIS, I do my renewal on my phone. So some of the interventions and even how with the MMDAs, they have tried to move even IGFs onto the gift mix platform. It's a way to show that when it comes to goodwill and intentions of this government to fight corruption, we are using digitalization and other means to do it.
Okay, let me take you to the Western region. This week you were there, the Appiatse rebuilding, and there was some commissioning. 124 housing units from 2-bedroom to 7 bedrooms. Really, let's talk about, is this the last of it? Are we going to have more units outstanding? 124, is that it?
Okay, so I think in a couple of interviews I mentioned that we have a phase 3 coming up, which His Excellency the Vice President has cut short for construction. I was informed it's about 70. But at the day of the sword cutting, the specific number was given as 67 units, which is coming up in the phase 3. But as you are aware, since January 2022, that government gave the signal or the intention to rebuild the community. We've done 2 phases already. The first phase has to do with the reconstruction of the Appiatse community in general, which we have the 124 units completed. And as I speak, I know the people, everyone knows where they are supposed to go. If they've moved in today, I don't have that brief, but I was going to ask,
I thought it was supposed to have been handed over.
Yes, they have their names and their lists, and everybody knows where they are going.
How are we deciding who gets what?
They have an LOC, a local committee for the reconstruction of Appiatse. They make inputs. They have the traditional authority, the MP, representatives from government. And you know, the reconstruction committee, although it's national, Honorable Benito Owusubio and the team are always at the place to make sure they are able to get it rightly done. But there was an inventory done by the District Assembly together with the Land Use and Spatial Division, as well as the State Housing Company, to assess at the time of damage, to ascertain the number of rooms you lost, where your property was, who is the head of the household, how many people were there. So that inventory of everyone who was within Appiatse was already taken. The reason why all the construction could not come up in the first phase is the fact that when they wanted to do the redesigning, originally, the names and the numbers they got for affected people after validation was 124. So the community was planned along those 124 lines. And because they wanted to build a modern model community, they had to make provisions for roads and other infrastructure. There was no school in the community. They wanted to build a school. They wanted to build a market and also a clinic. And to bring all those facilities on board, specifically even with the roads, it means even some houses at the fringes that were not severely damaged, which could have been left to stand alone, they had to go into negotiation with the owners to demolish them so that the community can be properly planned. So those who had their properties demolished to make way for the roads and other things are under the phase 3. And the few people who upon validation also came that their names were not captured were in the phase 3. The phase 2 has to do with persons who had properties around Appiatse and were impacted by the explosion, but their damage was such that they could be renovated. So 50 of such households, they negotiated with the reconstruction and the support fund committees, respectively, and then they did valuation and came up with some package for compensation. So
and
all
those compensations
they have received them and
since
done the renovations at those places. And now we are going into the phase 3. The phase 3 also actually delayed because, as I mentioned, after the planning, they didn't have a land within the township to even do the phase 3. So the traditional authority had to also allocate some lands nearby for them to be able to do the additional.
But you know this, I'm yet to get a specific number or amount in terms of how much it costs for us to do this and what we're about to do, and how much at least the fund, how much was accrued to this fund that was set up.
Okay, so just as I mentioned, the issue is a bit more nuanced, but let me go chronologically so that you get the facts. When the incident happened in 20th January 2022, the first thing government did was to find makeshift tents, like temporary accommodation for the people to move into. But you know, February, March, April, the rainy season, the storm came in, destroyed all the tents. So they had to relocate them to a more befitting structure that they could stay in within the period. And so they had to move to a neighboring town where a mining company had uncompleted property there and renovated about 37 buildings and roofed all of them so that they can move the entire community to the place. There were some who were also in some churches being hosted there in the meantime. So because they had to even go and renovate and roof 37 buildings, for which within the past 2 years, that's where the community members have been staying. You know, that is a separate cost that was not anticipated or calculated among this. And then the actual construction happened. My understanding from the reconstruction committee and Mr. Benston, who is an architect, and the technocrats, is that the construction, the housing units proper, what they have spent so far is in the range of about 49 million Ghana cedis. For the housing units, the 124 housing units from 1 to 7 bedrooms. But you are also aware that it is not only housing units that have been done there. There are other ancillary facilities that government has done. Through the GET fund, government has built a primary school and a KG block. That is not part of it. That's why it's important we give them time after everything is concluded and
they give us. But we know how much was accrued to the fund at the last count.
Okay, I'm coming to that. The Ministry of Roads, through its budgets, also did the drainage and the bitumen surfacing of all the roads the community roads by Ministry of Roads.
Okay.
And then the Community Water and Sanitation Agency also did the small town water systems and connected the pipelines. That's how come with every building, you see they've put 2 polytanks at the back. They've been able to build the water system.
Okay.
And other ancillary facilities that I may not have mentioned here. So it is only when the entire project is completed, then there will be a form of audits, and then they will tell us that after everything, this is what we got, this is what we spent.
Okay, all right. So it's 6 months on at least. They got it at least 2 years on. But closely linked to this is the Akosombo dam spillage. And thankfully, you were on that interministerial committee. And there was some funds that we were told had to be released or budgeted, and part of it has been released, amongst others. We have a documentary, a hotline documentary that we've put together. The first part is aired. We're airing the second part tomorrow after the floods. And 6 months on, we've been hearing from many of these victims. I'm happy you say that compensations have been paid to persons in Appiatse. They're listening to you now and concerned about it. They're still sleeping rough in the open and in tents, amongst others, and looking at the weather, amongst others. They have concerns. Really, what's happening to victims of this Akosombo disaster? Okay.
So, first of all, let me say that government is as committed to the victims of the Akosombo Dams village as they are committed to the victims of Appiatse. Just that you know, in terms of where they have reached, if you want to compare a 2 years process to a 6 months process, it will not be a fair comparison.
Do they have to wait for 2 years?
No, not at all. I'm coming to that. Because I believe if some 6 months ago, if we were talking about Appiatse victims, a lot of Ghanaians wouldn't have even known that construction was ongoing. So as I speak to you, we are in the phase 3 of the post-spillage arrangement that government is executing through the interministerial committee chaired by the Honorable Chief of Staff, Madam Akosombo Opare. What was the mandate of the committee, or what has government done post-spillage? Apart from all the work the VRA and the District Disaster Management Committee and others did prior to the spillage, during and after the spillage, we went through the phase 1. The phase 1 had to do with issues concerning health and safety and welfare issues. You would remember that we held several press conferences where the Chief of Staff mentioned that about 40 million had been voted for relief distribution. Some people assume that when we spoke about relief, it was just about maybe distributing food. It was not just that. You know, because of the water situation, even building water systems. At first, it was bringing tankers to all the communities to provide water every day, and subsequently building 5,000-liter tanks at vantage points so that we can drop the waters for them. It also has to do with the health aspect, where we had to build temporary clinics for doctors and nurses in the various safe havens to be able to attend to emergencies. It also has to do with making arrangements to get the security agencies to remove people who are trapped by the flood, putting the boats and other things on it. Sometimes the impression is created as if because there were security men doing the groundwork, it has nothing to do with government. But this is a committee that was coordinated by government, that is funded by government or government agencies to work, and commissioned to work. Yeah. So the fact that the safety bit, everything was done by the grace of God and we weren't losing lives, was a testament to the fact that we did the phase 1. The phase that we are in now has to do with the rehabilitation and reconstruction phase.
Exactly.
And that phase has already started.
Has it?
The phase 1 of the rehabilitation phase, the decision is to build 115 two-bedroom housing units in the phase 1 to help victims that are affected by the displaced flooding. But you know that because Appiatse is it's one community centrally located, but the spillage, the communities are separated. So when we are doing the phase 1, we are not doing only Mepe and leaving another place.
And it looks like we are concentrating more on Mepe, and already we are hearing from some of the residents.
So if you go to, let me give you updates. If you, government has already started the phase 1 construction at foundation level, 115 housing units The 115 housing units are in 6 communities in 2 constituencies or 2 districts. In North Tong, 20 housing units at Mepe, 20 housing units at Bator, 15 housing units at Agbetipo. Sorry if I don't get it, but I hope I get it correctly. And even North Tong, there was consideration for Avehime, but construction ambassadors, through their corporate social responsibility, had already built some housing units there. They are the contractors that are building the projects in these affected areas as we speak. But because they had a CSR and there was a model design in Avehime, that is the same model design that we are using for all the projects that we are doing. In Central Tong, 20 housing units at Mafidove. I hope I got that correctly as well. And another 20 housing units at Mafi Adidome, ongoing, and 20 housing units at New Bapa. They are all ongoing.
These are all foundation levels.
Yes, but with the model that construction ambassadors are using, the estimated time for completion is that in the next 2 months, so we are in May, we are estimating that by July, they should complete the first phase. So I'm saying that the Minister for Works and Housing, together with officials from VRA and the Volta Regional RCC, led by Dr. Archibald Lecha, they've gone there. They've been going there. Honorable Upon Chroma on TV everywhere. He was in Mepe. He was in other communities to do the sort cutting. But as I said, the incidents, the validation, the feasibility studies, all the architectural design assessment, all has to happen within these 6 months. So all of a sudden, if because Appiatse is completed, and the impression is created as if, oh, it is politically motivated. As for Volta region, they are not doing so much. I'm giving the assurances that the work is ongoing. In fact, the subsequent phases, the phase 2 and phase 3, the Ministry for Works and Housing, together with VRA, even outside the allocation of the 220 million, which was voted by government, is making arrangements to build additional phases based on the validation.
Okay, so there is the release of the 80 million that is going into this 115 housing units construction. They've raised the issue about validation and how it was conducted amongst others, such that we won't finish and those who are truly affected do not get what is due them.
As I said, when it comes to relief item distribution, when it comes to auditing, everything is coordinated by the district disaster management committees. When I mention it, I'm not talking about a small committee of some people that we don't know. The DCs are part, all the MPs are part of the district disaster management committees. So even when they receive relief items, they receive them on behalf of the committee for the community. They also elect or nominate some traditional leaders to be part. All the elected assemblymen are part. They go for their meetings. The locations of these properties, you know, you cannot walk into somebody's community and just go and take a land and say, I'm developing. It's the chiefs and the traditional authorities who assisted them or facilitated the acquisition of these.
I'm seeing messages from residents in Agave and South Tong. At least you've mentioned North Tong and some other communities, 6 communities you've mentioned. Is there a plan for the other communities that are affected by this? And also, you know, when we talk about, you yourself talked about relief and compensation issues comes up, they are wondering what exactly will happen. Are they going to get any form of compensation apart from building these housing units for homeowners who lost their homes? How about those who do not have homes, but at least they are not homeowners, but they are tenants, they've lost their livelihood?
As I said, on the part of government, 220 million was voted.
Yes.
80 million has been released so far. The subsequent releases, the determination will be done when the interministerial committee chaired by the chief of staff goes to it, and we say, okay, after construction, we still have additional funds to attend to other things. And remember that the Ministry of Agri, yes, I'm coming to that. Remember that the Minister for Agriculture, Honorable Brian Champon, said that the program that they were originally having for the planting for food and jobs phase 2 and the allocations, because of the spillage and the impact that a lot of farming communities along the Volta, along the downstream of the Volta Lake were affected, he was going to pay special attention, and he's even done some presses and interviews on it, and they have also initiated their processes. The Minister for Roads and Highways at the time, Honorable Amwakwata, and I believe Honorable Akosombo will also pursue that, was trying to also fix some roads and bridges in furtherance of this rehabilitation and efforts within the third phase. So it is not just the construction, but as I said, even the gender ministry, they went there, they did some validation exercise on persons with disability and persons who qualify within the LEAP program, and we're also doing disbursement. They actually started the disbursement even last year. And then the Ministry for Health, they were also looking at renovation of hospitals and clinics that were impacted by spillage. Ministry for Education was also doing same with schools. And that's how come they were able to reopen the schools. And as I speak to you, even the Volta River Authority, they've released some of their buses for some communities that they've been using it to transport students in and out. And all efforts, relief and supports are ongoing. But because the buildings are not completed and the pictures are not all out there in social media,
so the money released are not to be giving cash.
The first phase that was released is towards the reconstruction of the communities. And I've mentioned every single community and where the project is ongoing. So your reporters can even go there to the assembly. They will take them to the site. They will see the construction work ongoing and see what's being done.
Well, Carlos Caloni is our man on the ground on this, and he'll definitely be checking, because you're giving us the areas, the communities that these constructions are taking place, and he's definitely following on that. But before we wrap up, is Dumso really over?
We've had challenges within the electricity space. I won't even say that there is Dumso. We've been through some challenges, especially from the beginning of this year. And as you heard from the ECG MD and other people within the sector, the initial problem, they did not anticipate that the resolution would take this long, but it has. And we've been concerned about the impact of the power outages on businesses and households, and how it's affecting all of us. And that is why government will not wait for it to degenerate into what we know as Dumso and the trauma that it brought to Ghanaians. So we are moving quickly to resolving that. And as the President mentioned, I believe in the coming weeks, they say in Tree that if a blind person says they will throw a stone at you, it's because their feet is on something. So we are confident that the solution is in sight, and they are doing the best to make sure they are able to meet demands at all times and peak capacity. And ECG will also take the necessary steps to fix the metering issues and also their transformer issues. And sooner than you anticipate, I believe this will be a thing of the past.
Are you concerned about the fact that your parliamentary approval is still in limbo?
Of course. Of course. It was my prayer that a long time ago we were approved, and then the President could swear us in, so that the confidence and the vim with which we will work will be in full force. That hasn't happened. But we trust in the wisdom of the House, and we will exercise patience until the House is able to do the necessary.
We are grateful. We are grateful for your time.
But His Excellency, the President, has appointed me as his representative at the Ministry of Information, same as other ministers designate, I believe.
And even so that the minority are raising concerns about that, because they say there's no provision in law for that form of assignment. But these are matters that we'll talk about for another day.
Maybe, yes.
We'll wrap up on this. Thank you so much for your time here on The Probe. We are grateful. That's Minister Designate for Information, Fatimatu Abubakar. My pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have a good evening. There's more when you log on to myjournalline.com.